Because we speak English in Australia, you idiot.
From Vegemite on toast to saying g'day to strangers, Australians have a unique way of doing things that can leave visitors scratching their heads. In this video, we're diving into the weird and wonderful world of Aussie culture to explore the top things that confuse those that we come into contact with about Australians. It's more than a love of meat pies or an obsession with surfing, so if you've ever wondered why Australians do the things that we do, or maybe you're an Aussie like me who's proud of your country's customs, then stick around.
Can you hear the thunder? Oh, you better run, you better take cover. Oh.
There are a lot of things about Australian culture that I take for granted when travelling around the world. Our slang, our way of life, and the way that we communicate. It's all unique, and it can be a big culture shock to both immigrants and worldwide travellers. Now, I've been praised on more than one occasion on how good my English is here in the US. And I was even asked if I found it hard to learn. Just like my fancy friend Iggy Azalea in this interview from a few years ago.
What do you mean?
It's just how I talk.
That's how you talk?
It is.
Why?
Because I'm Australian.
What?
Yes, I know.
You're Australian?
Yeah.
Your English is very good. How long did it take you to learn English once you got here?
It was really easy. Because we speak English in Australia, you idiot.
Oh. Right, of course.
Poor Iggy. So one of the terms that we love to throw around is, how's it going? It's used as a standard greeting thousands of times a day all over the country. From friends and colleagues to bartenders and checkout operators, a lot of people say it without even thinking. Now, I don't say it here in the States because of the strange expressions that I've received. How's what going? And where's it going, huh? The question doesn't really need a detailed answer though. So generally you would answer it with a, yeah, good mate, and you? And then you just move on. So don't make the mistake of thinking it's a therapy session and start telling all your problems. We don't really want to know. If you're invited to a party or a barbecue and you're asked to bring a plate, in most areas of the country, it means bring some kind of food to share. Now, whether that's a side dish like a salad, a dessert, or a full-blown casserole, it really depends upon what the host is planning. And when they say not to bring anything, reduce the size and formality of what you're going to take, but never actually take nothing. The minimum would be maybe a box of lollies or a bottle of wine, a six-pack of beer. Now, speaking of parties, a word of warning. Americans don't say hip hip hooray at the end of happy birthday. Yep, I learned this one the hard way. My daughter's first birthday party here in the US, everyone's singing happy birthday to her, she blows the candles out, and my wife and I start saying hip hip hooray, to deafening silence and strange stares all around. Pass the Parcel was another one that we found was not a thing here, but it is now, thanks to us doing it every single year, and also to a little blue healer by the name of Bluey. A lot of older people in Australia still call dinner tea. So if someone asks you over for tea, make sure they mean just a pot and not for a full-blown meal. Normally, if they're inviting you for a hot beverage, it's usually said with, do you want to come round for a coffee or a cuppa? It's pretty well known that we drive on the opposite side of the road and also sit on the opposite side of the car when driving. But in addition to that, we walk on the left-hand side also, and we stand on the left-hand side of escalators. Now, the first time that I paid any attention to this was in New York City. There were masses of people walking, and here I was, without thinking, walking on the left. Big mistake. Now, as for escalators, when stopping on one or walking upstairs, always stick to the left and don't block other people from passing you by resting your hand on the right. Melbourne even had a Keep Left campaign 10 years or so ago. While you are walking around keeping to the left, it's not that unusual to see someone walking around in public spaces barefoot. Now, doing this in summer was always a risk with how hot the pavement gets, but I would quite often go to the supermarket or down to the bakery barefoot and think nothing of it. As a country, we generally look down on people boasting. Staying humble is the way to go, and I know I've felt uncomfortable in work environments here in the US with people who would love to constantly catalogue their achievements and abilities in a way meant to underline just how great they think they are. In some respects, I guess the American work culture encourages this under a banner of self-confidence, but in Australia, it's perceived as bragging, which then leads us to an Australian disease called tall poppy syndrome. Now, tall poppy syndrome is the tendency to criticize or resent people who are successful. Now, as you can picture, a tall poppy is someone who seemingly rises above the rest and needs to be cut down. It's about perceiving the poppy as someone too big for their boots. And in some respects, it comes back to our love of the underdog, known as the great Aussie battler. The idea that we should work hard to earn just enough money to survive is still deeply ingrained in much of our national identity. Now, we are also a nation that loves to give everybody nicknames. Few people get called by their actual given name, so let me give you a few examples. Sharon will probably be called Shazza. Darren will be Dazza. Gary will be Gazza. And if you are a red-headed male, you might get called Blue. Now, the good news is, if someone gives you a nickname, it probably means they think you're all right. Making small talk with the person at the register of a supermarket or a shop is common, and it's just considered polite. It's normal to strike up a conversation with the cab driver as soon as you get in it too. It is also common in Australia for drivers to engage passengers in conversation about anything that they like. And lastly, religion. Asserting your religion is certainly frowned upon. It's a subject that is better left alone, and you'll find most people actually feel very uncomfortable talking about it in the workplace or at social gatherings. Kind of ironic in a way though is the fact that we're hardly a religious nation, and yet we get Good Friday and Easter Monday off as public holidays each year. So imagine my surprise when I learned living here that they are not holidays at all. I live in what is termed the belt buckle of the Bible Belt, and I did want to add that having people pray for me and my family in public places here, like the workplace or just the other week at a restaurant, has actually been a really nice experience for us. But it's something that I don't think you would ever see in Australia. Thanks for joining me on this one today. I would love to have you subscribed to the channel and to hit that like button for me too. It really helps YouTube know that people want to see more of this type of content. And I hope that this has helped to share some of the uniqueness of Australian culture, and look for more of these to come in the future too. Take it easy, and I'll catch you again on From Down Under to Down South.